The story began with a big theory of an explosion, and the unknown from space called the Devil's Star, which was moving towards the human planet. People had no idea what kind of civilization, or what kind of unknown was approaching them. As a result of the approach of this planet, all plants and animals on Earth were severely damaged. Suddenly a monster appeared who called himself the Lord of the Beasts. It was he who launched countless divine beasts into this world, against which human technology was powerless. This was the first time people encountered such creatures, and since they were bloodthirsty and strong, they had to retreat to save their lives. Real chaos reigned in the world. People still could not cope with such a serious influx of uncertainty. The arrival of the devil into the human world brought with it not only chaos and destruction, but also gave hope for salvation. For the sake of all humanity, people were forced to cross a completely new dimension. Then the planet took on a completely different look. After all, there were already completely different plants that looked like monsters that were just waiting for their prey. And all this was the same planet called the Devil's Star, which had incredible dimensions and endless boundaries. There, people realized that they could learn magic in order to increase their level and become stronger. They were informed that once the Devil's Star changed, their planet Earth could gain great power. And then humanity will be able to fight the Great Beast. Then the era of great changes began. People could choose different categories: knights, mages, summoners, barbarians. One of the first to become famous was the warrior Marima, who was ahead of many and mastered the powers of martial arts. Next, it was a knight who had frantic sword-fighting abilities. The third rank was taken by the Hidden Killer, a professional in his field on this planet. Humanity was asked the question, do they believe that fate could have led them to a different ending? After all, depending on what choice they made, or believed in it, regardless of everything, will the choice they have to make lead them to the same ending? This is exactly what they needed to know. After all, this is where the very invasion of the Devil's Star began, from which many different creatures emerged. People were scared, because monsters with human faces were too scary. Moreover, how could ordinary residents overcome such an unusually majestic monster who just did so by destroying everyone and everything? All they could do was run and hope that they wouldn't notice them. But when they realized that they had reached the edge and there was nowhere else to run, their plan was to hide and seek shelter. It was all like a game of hide and seek, only the water was too big. One of the girls really hoped that the creature would not notice her and would simply pass by. But the monster suddenly lowered his head and looked under the stone, discovering it, which greatly put the girl into a state of shock. It still hoped that the creature would grant her life and not eat her as lunch. But still the monster swallowed her, and there was pitch darkness in front of her. The guy watching all this assumed that this was all called the Devil's Star. And although this was all a test for beginners, he considered it too difficult a task. After all, they were initially told to simply survive on this planet for 5 minutes, after using the job change material to complete the task. But he believed that for a normal person to survive even 5 minutes on the Devil's Star was almost impossible. This guy's name was Jian Kai, and at that moment he was in the middle of a test for newcomers on that planet. Devil's Star was a huge planet that appeared out of nowhere on their Earth 50 years ago. But the appearance of the Devil's Star did not cause a gravitational catastrophe that could cause the Earth to deviate from its orbit. And yet, from the moment the Devil's Star appeared, animals and plants on Earth began to mutate. These were already real monsters called divine beasts, wreaking havoc throughout the world. The deity beasts were those that human technology was unable to neutralize. Therefore, their appearance brought the civilian population to the brink of extinction. But during this desperate period, the surviving people learned that many mysterious teleportation portals had appeared on Earth. Therefore, they immediately went to the Devil's Star in digital form. The moment they arrived on the new planet shocked them. After all, the understanding immediately came that this Devil's Star was a virtual world. Then they mastered the skills of various professions, and each of them acquired their own characteristics, equipment, skills, ability to level up, and much more. They even found out that once you reach a certain level, you can use this same supernatural power on Earth. By the same time, people could become as strong as the beast date in the real world. Then they realized that they could even fight against these creatures, because this was the only way to get out of there. And for this, they had to try very hard to cultivate and gain strength from the Devil's Star. The people who went to this planet were known as pioneers. And then the guy realized that of all, he was the only survivor who was watching the creature from under the stone. The catch was that he had nowhere to run, because the creature had led him to a dead end, at the end of which there was a cliff. It already knew where this very last guy was and moved, admiring its victory, straight towards him. Jian Kai, in turn, thought about the fact that he had spent all the money that his family had saved up. But he was not one of those who came to the planet expecting to die. His little sister asked him to just do it in order to get to the Devil's Star, because she and her older brother were trying to save money for him. And so Jian Kai thought that his younger sister and older brother were doing everything possible just to get him to this planet. His older brother worked hard despite being diagnosed with poor health. And if they couldn't raise enough money to pay for the operation within 2 months, he would... And yet, the guy blamed himself for the fact that even at that moment he did not have time to finish his work shift. Jian Kai could not believe that he could die after the money his family saved would go to waste. He had little time to think as the creature sent its long spear towards him. Seeing this, he was shocked. He didn't know what to do. But instead of just sitting there and dying, Jian Kai wanted to risk his life for the sake of his family. He relied on his only change to survive. Because of the monster's attack, he fell off a cliff, thinking that this was not the end, and the creature watched this from above, because this was the only person it missed. Suddenly the system activated in front of the guy, and reported that his actions perfectly coincided with the actions of those who were gambling. She congratulated him on becoming one of those 1 in a million career changers. Then, the secret profession opened for Jian Kai. After the monster's attack, the guy woke up in the middle of a dense forest in a clearing. He didn't understand what was happening, and how did it happen that he survived. There was no pain after the fall, and all the wounds from the monster's attack surprisingly healed. Then a bright blue light appeared in front of him, and the sound of a notification from the system was heard, which at first made the guy concentrate sharply. A beautiful girl appeared before him, who told him that after changing his profession, Kai's characteristics were updated, and this was tantamount to rebirth. The guy suggested that it was the Devil Star's artificial intelligence. The girl agreed with his assumption and added that she would now explain to the guy what talents he acquired as a gambler. All rewards and punishments issued by the system will be doubled. In addition, there is a 1% chance to activate the Super Multiplier. Its effect multiplies rewards and punishments by 10 times. During the activation of the profession, the multiplier talent will work. So the guy will receive another gambler talent. The first of them has already been activated. Jinky instantly became inspired and overjoyed upon hearing about another profession talent. While usually everyone only receives 1 talent. The system nodded positively and said that Jian Kai's next talent would be the Super Scrit talent. This meant that the critical damage from the guy's attacks was increased by 20,000%. The initial critical strike chance is 0.1%. And then the pioneer Jian Kai got the gambler profession at the first level, having 2 talents, Multiplier and Super Crit, and the following characteristics: 4 Strength, 8 Endurance, 12 Agility, 12 Intelligence, 0 defense, experience, 0 of 100. That was a total of 36 stat points. This was a large number of points, since ordinary players receive only 20 points after changing their profession, which greatly surprised the guy. But the system responded that even these points were doubled after the shift. After thinking, Jian Kai realized that for each new level he would receive 20 points instead of 10, and therefore he would grow twice as fast as others. Moreover, Kai also has Super Crit, which means that other players have only 200% critical damage, while he has as much as 20,000%. Even though his chance is only 0.1%, Kai will be able to pick him up. And then the guy's damage will be simply unimaginable. In front of him, Jian Kai suddenly noticed the weapon used by the monster who wanted to kill him. Initially, the guy planned to quickly change his profession after arriving here and earn money for his brother. After all, even with the weakest profession, you can earn a large amount on the Devil Star. Kai thought about this, picking up the same pole thrown by the monster. But now Jian Kai could not even imagine that he would receive a hidden and such a powerful profession, which would now give him a huge number of opportunities. Having pulled out the monster's pole from the ground and taking it in his right hand, Kai confidently looked forward, because now he will be able to save a lot of money and his family's life will improve. Then a notification appeared saying that Jian Kai had completed the task to change his profession. To complete the quest, it was necessary to reach the City of the Gods safe and sound. Therefore, obtaining a new profession was only the beginning. So it was to complete the quest of the training zone and get to the destination indicated by the system. Now Jian Kai's main goal was to reach the City of Gods in 7 days, otherwise everything would be useless. It is extremely difficult to get there in one piece. The beginner area is overcrowded with monsters. If the player dies, the quest will fail, and the player will be teleported back to Earth. The body on Earth will not suffer in any way, even if you die here. After this, you can even get here again. But this is a small problem only for the rich. Therefore, the guy was not going to die while walking through a forest with strange, scary trees. Rebooting your profile in the Devil Star costs a fortune. The rich are not limited in their attempts. But the poor, like Jian Kai, are obliged to pass this even on the first try. Then the guy, walking through the forest, heard a strange sound and became wary, and his eyes became wary and frightened. From the depths of the forest came terrible screams that echoed through the forest and reached Kai himself. Hiding behind a tree, the guy realized that he knew the scream coming from the depths of the forest. Turning around, the guy saw a small snake that was aggressively attacking the frightened guy, who, out of fear, asked God himself to save him. A guy with a strong and pumped-up physique, almost crying, fought off the snake flying at him with the help of his strength and blows. It was Yuanju, Jiankai's childhood friend, who screamed hysterically and fought off the snakes attacking him, saying that he hated them. Looking at his friend again, Jiankai was convinced that this was definitely his acquaintance Juzi, who somehow found himself trapped by snakes, the poison of which was so strong that even human-like animals could die from one bite, so Kai's friend was in real danger. Then Juji heard the voice of his Kai and turned around with hope, looking at him with frightened eyes. Jian Kai flew out of his hiding place, holding that same pole in his hands, and shouted to his friend not to be afraid, because help in the person of Kai was already close. Seeing his friend approaching, Juzi was surprised and asked how he ended up here, but there was no time to speculate. Juji shouted for Kai to forget about him and quickly leave here, since these snakes already have very high characteristics, and they are also poisonous, so it is simply impossible to defeat them. But Jian Kai could no longer be stopped. He quickly rushed forward, and in an instant threw his found pole straight at the snake. What was Yuanju's surprise when he saw how deftly his friend hit one of his hated enemies and pierced him through with an unusual spear. The snake was nailed to a stone. This caused Yuan to ask his friend a lot of questions, because he did not expect Kai to be able to kill an enemy of this level. But Kai did not answer, but only continued the attack, considering it excellent that Juze was distracting the snakes, since now he could attack from the blind spot. But the snakes were not too stupid, and already realized who really posed a threat to them and targeted Jian Kai. Yuanju immediately shouted to his friend in an excited voice to be careful, since these snakes have very high agility. But Kai just grinned, standing on his hands and practically doing a cartwheel, avoiding the attacks of the snakes and demonstrating to them his own abilities. Seeing his friend's agility, Yuanju was greatly surprised, as he did not expect that Jian Kai would be able to dodge such a nimble and strong attack. But Kai, raising his head, justified his friend's surprise, saying that his stats are now twice as high and equal to the second level. So, snakes of the first level are now no match for him. Having taken his unusual spear, Jian Kai squeezed it tightly in his hand and was already preparing to attack further. The guy ordered Juji to distract the snakes towards himself, attacking them and attracting their attention with blows, while Jian Kai himself would be a support from behind and attack from the quiet. So the team of two guys rallied strongly and were able to kill dangerous snakes one after another. In the end, after a minute of fighting, not a single living snake remained on the battlefield, but only pieces that had been cut up lay. Juji was very surprised, as he did not even notice how Kai destroyed all the snakes, because he distracted them for just a minute. After opening his parameters, Jian Kai realized that he had really high agility, but very little strength, while the damage was enough to kill level 1 monsters with one hit. So the guy's experience increased by 3, since the guy killed 3 snakes. Looking at his iron spear, the guy thought that it would definitely help him increase his strength for a while. And strength, by the way, was the basic characteristic responsible for the attack on the star. But Kai was unable to think further, since Juji, whom he had saved, had already jumped on him from behind, and joyfully exclaimed that he was glad that Kai, as a newcomer, did not die from the clutches of monsters, unlike other pioneers. Kai, almost choking, replied that he was lucky and got the profession of a gambler, but seeing his friend's surprise, Jian Kai added that this information should under no circumstances be told to anyone. Here Juji suddenly cheered up and replied that his profession was also not bad. The system gave him the profession of a first-level martial artist. The characteristics were also quite good. Strength 8, Endurance 8, Agility 5, Intelligence 5, Defense 0, as well as experience. Now Jinkai understood how Yuanju held out alone against 3 snakes for so long, because the profession of martial artist ranks 5th in the realm of the gods. Nobody knows how many professions there are on the Devil's Star, but the first thing everyone does when they get here is try to get it. The profession that a pioneer receives depends on the qualities of their materials that they have before entering. Rich people spend tens of millions on materials for themselves, and thus can get very good and strong professions after completing the quest. Murima warrior, knight or assassin. The poor cannot afford good materials to acquire a profession, so they are weak. The professions themselves are given out completely randomly. The profession of a martial artist, for example, is worth more than 50 million, so Jian Kai even thought that Yuan took out a loan for it. But the friend replied that this was not so, but the story was too long, so he would tell it later. But for now, it was necessary to collect materials from the snakes, which most likely could be sold. The money earned here can be exchanged for any currency on Earth, which can help both Jiankai and his family. Money is given for remains, cores, minerals, materials, or equipment obtained from the Devil's Star. These are all Devil Star items. Once obtained, these items turn into cards that can be traded or sold. For example, now Kai had in his assortment a card with the remains of an island snake, which could also be disassembled. Jiankai thought to himself that judging by the battle, the gambler profession gives more advantages and is stronger than a martial artist. Then, a rustling sound was heard from the bushes, to which Yuan turned around. A foot in a pink boot appeared from the greenery, and behind it came a quiet female voice, greeting the guys. Wenju was instantly frightened by surprise and was already hiding behind his friend, screaming in fear, and Jiankai fearfully asked who was there. Naturally, after what you experienced on this island, you no longer expect anything good. But this time they were not attacked by snakes or another monster, but a frightened girl came out of hiding, who, stuttering, introduced herself as Su Ayai, said that she was unable to pass the test on her own and asked to join their team. Realizing that in front of them was just another pioneer, Yuan exhaled with relief, and Kai said that it was already difficult for them, and with her it would be even more difficult to get out of here. But the girl was not going to give up, clinging to the last chance to pass the test. Ai added that she is a healer and can heal their wounds. Already almost crying, the girl also said that she could extract poison from snakes and improve the guys' weapons if they still found it, and once again insistently asked not to leave her alone. Yuan, hearing that the girl could heal and improve weapons, was greatly inspired. But Jiankai weighed everything more carefully, remembering that a healer is one of the 10 best possible professions. And in this test, considering what they had to go through, it would really be nice to have a healer, because if the guy had not recovered then, he would definitely have died from his wounds. In the end, Jiankai agreed and introduced himself and Yuanju to the girl. Extending his hand, the guy said that now they will get to the final destination together, to which Su Ai responded with great gratitude. Turning to his friend in a whisper, Yuan, with a slight mockery in his voice, asked Kai if he really changed his mind and took the girl with him because he liked her. But Kai did not appreciate his friend's joke and said that he could smack him for such words. At this time, in the Kingdom of the Gods, the city of Jianzhong, next to the huge portal to the Devil's Star, namely at Base 18, interesting events were unfolding. In the data research laboratory, there was a man who was determining the location of the pioneers on the star with the help of an excellent invention given to each of them. A wristwatch. The man was answered by an approaching female voice, saying that most watches on the market easily give out all kinds of devil data, and the more expensive the watch, the more functions it has. Entering the room, the girl who was the rookie test inspector, Su Lanlin, asked Professor Lee what the progress was and whether her little sister was okay. Professor Lee replied that according to the GPS data, most of the newcomers have already been weeded out, and Lanlin's sister, Su Ai, is now in a room with 2 people. This news made Su Lingling angry. She didn't expect her sister to be so cowardly that she would join a team with others, even though she warned Ai not to do that and not to join other people's teams. After all, the more newcomers gather in one place, the more monsters they attract by making a lot of sounds. At that moment, a loud crunch of trees was heard in the forest, breaking under the steps of strong and huge monsters approaching their friends. Understanding this and seeing the whole situation, Jiankai, Yuanju, and Su Ai were already preparing for the next stage on the path to obtaining their professions, a large and difficult battle. 3 minutes later, Professor Lee, having reconnoitered the situation, confirmed that there were indeed 2 human-like monsters next to Su Nuanuan. Su Lanlin began to worry, because for a group of beginners, even one such monster is too much, and against 2, her sister doesn't have a chance. This means that she will definitely die. Death on the star is like losing a character in a game, but the character's real body will not be harmed in real life on Earth. But the most dangerous thing is the psychological trauma from the experience, which can cause serious harm. The patients recalled how they were eaten by the monster, how they were killed, and could not calm down, pounding in hysterics. Understanding all this, Su Lanlin turned and began to leave, saying that she would take her sister from the star for psychological tests. But Professor Lee stopped her, saying that Nuanuan was still not dead. This news shocked Su Lanlin, who couldn't believe that her sister was still completing the task. The next moment, Professor Lee stared at the screen in surprise, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. And then he said in the same surprised voice that, according to his data, 2 human-like monsters died. This news shocked not only him and Lanlin, but also everyone in the laboratory. But just 3 minutes ago, 2 human-like monsters were chasing 3 guys trying to survive this test. Yuanju was very frightened and did not understand what kind of creatures they were. He was answered by the equally out-of-breath Su Nuanyuan, who suggested that this was a human-like beast from which he definitely needed to run. Jian Kai, who was running ahead, looked back and realized that things were bad because his friends were not so agile, so both of them could fall into the clutches of monsters. Then the guy braked sharply and ordered his friend Zhu to accelerate faster and run away. Nuanuan and Yuan, running past the stopped guy, looked at him with surprised and frightened glances. But Jian Kai stood firmly on his feet with a spear in his hand and looked straight at the huge monsters rushing towards him. Yuan turned to his friend and with tears in his eyes shouted at Kai, suggesting that he was definitely doing something stupid and going to certain death, trying to detain the monsters for the sake of his friends. But the guy was not so simple. He told everyone to run because he could handle it himself and prepared to attack. After all, Kai understood that if everything continued like this, they would all die together. This could not be allowed. It was necessary to take a risk, and Kai attacked the monster swinging a spear. He was determined to stay here and kill these beasts. One powerful blow, to the surprise of everyone, hit the target and was able to severely wound one of the monsters, who, as Kai thought, died almost immediately. Kai was glad that he hit the monster and killed it. This gave him confidence in his abilities, but his joy was short-lived. He felt something huge approaching, but did not have time to turn around in time. His gaze instantly became wary and frightened, but it was too late. With a crushing blow, the monster threw Kai aside straight into a large cobblestone, which even cracked and crumbled from such force. This meant only one thing. Kai could not crush the monster. Sitting by the broken stone and trying to get up, the guy thought about the huge level of health of these monsters because they really cannot be defeated with one blow. But the monsters definitely didn't think about it. They only mocked him and came closer and closer to Kai, making creepy sounds. Jian Kai glared at his enemies. Blood flowed down his face. He clenched his teeth as hard as he could, thinking that this was the end for him and that he would still die in the beginner's test. Looking at what was happening, Sunuanwan covered her mouth in horror and turning to Ju, said that since Kai was in danger, they should help him. But the guy was shaking with fear, looking at the huge monsters. Ju was tormented by doubts and conscience. He tried to collect his thoughts in order to finally stop being afraid and help his friend. To do this, he remembered the very area of the polluted river. Not the safest and most prosperous place where the guy spent his childhood with his parents. Ju remembered how his mother brought coffee to the man, thanks to whom the guy had materials for work, and he was now in Zayezda, and said that her Juju, although tall, was very timid. Therefore, if he sees a dangerous and large monster, he is unlikely to dare to fight him. But the mysterious man in the hat just grinned. Taking a cup of coffee in his hand, he confirmed that Ju was indeed very afraid of monsters. But he has something special that many people don't have. It was obvious to the mysterious man that the guy he had chosen, Yuan Ju, would never leave anyone in trouble. If someone he knows gets into trouble, his shyness in such a situation will disappear. These words made Ju finally gather his thoughts, and he was going to. Knowing that his friend was in trouble, helped Ju put aside his fear and timidity, which gave way to rage and a desire to protect Kai at all costs. A blow of enormous power occurred instantly and threw the monster away from Kai, who was already saying goodbye to life. Yuan still managed to strike, overcoming his main fear. The monster recoiled and flew some distance away, creating huge clouds of dust. The second monster also got a little scared and stopped. The first question Ju asked the surprised Kai was, did he really decide to protect him because he thought he was weak? Kai didn't even know what to answer, but was grateful to his friend for saving him. Ju further added that he and Kai are brothers, and if so, then they should always be and do everything together. And they should even die together. Kai's eyes widened at what he heard. He didn't think that anyone would ever be able to protect him, since he was used to relying only on himself. The next second, Yuan Ju gathered all his strength and with eyes full of rage, rushed towards the monsters. Ju rushed forward and demolished the monster with one blow, causing him considerable damage. The guy's strength was truly incredible. Will Ju be able to finish off the monster with one blow? After all, the damage was really small. These thoughts visited the surprised Kai, who was observing the situation. Ju delivered a crushing punch to the man-like monster and knocked it down. This is probably something a martial artist can really do. The wounded Kai lay and looked at the fighting Ju, when he suddenly felt that he was getting better, without understanding what was happening. It was Nuanuan, who, noticing the wounded Kai, rushed to help and began to treat him, encouraging him with words to hold on. Noticing Nuanuan not far from him and being afraid for her, Kai, worried, began to say that she forgot here, because she is not a fighter. Nuanuan, greatly frightened by the human-like monsters, screamed with tears in her eyes that she would not go anywhere because the doctor must treat people. At this moment, Nuanuan was flooded with sad memories of his father, who lost the support of healers during the invasion of monsters and died because of this. Against the backdrop of memories, she cried and reflected on situations when her team needed support. Continuing to treat Kai, Nuanuan, under the influence of strong emotions of fear and worries for the team, thought, could she leave the guys now? While Nuanuan was thinking about all this, Kai's treatment was coming to an end, and he was very surprised to see his wounds healing right before his eyes. Kai realized that his strength had returned to him again, and he was ready to fight, and began to think through further actions, rising from the ground. Full of strength, Kai stood with his spear, and seeing Ju fighting, he realized that he really was not afraid of death. Kai was already going to help Ju, and Nuanuan looked and realized that even together they would not have enough damage to kill the human-like beast. Kai suddenly stopped, also realizing that they would not have enough damage, and memories came to his mind. The guy remembered that Nuanuan had said that if they met the same snakes that Kai had previously killed, she would be able to extract the poison and strengthen their weapons with snake venom. Next, Kai asked Nuanuan, looking at the snake in the system interface, whether she knew how to extract poison from the snake and at the same time treat Ju. Kai extended his hand to the snake Nuanuan and said that in this way they might be able to win. Nuanuan was not sure how to cope, but, trying confusedly, she began to try to heal and extract the poison at the same time. The girl applied poison to Kai's spear, and he thought and concluded that they could win if he thought it through correctly. Kai understood that he could not survive alone with this creature, but Ju could do it. Kai's damage initially is not enough to kill a human-like beast, but with the improvement in the form of poison from Nuanuan, everything could work out. Kai took a closer look and realized that their team is an excellent example from games where there is a working combination of a tank, damage dealer, and healer. The application of the poison was completed, which means the combination plan can be put into action, since it suits them so well. Kai rushed into battle at very high speed with a poisoned spear in his hands, thinking about what difference it made whether he was a beginner or not. Now Kai is already approaching Ju at full speed, asking him to hold the human-like beast for him, to which he received a positive response. Ju, with the support of Nuanuan, fought and held out against the monster, because now they are working as a team. Ju delivered a powerful and distracting blow, adding to the words about the team that everyone plays their role. At this time, Kai noticed that the monster was distracted and, pushing off with all his strength from the ground, made a powerful jerk, using the opportunity to attack. While in flight, Kai, with a poisoned spear in his hands, was already approaching the head of the monster, thinking that even if someone found out how some newcomers like them defeated human-like beasts, then they can challenge them. At that moment, Kai stabbed the poisoned spear directly into the monster's head with a cry of "Die!" On the system interface, Kai saw that he had killed a level 2x1 human-like beast and gained experience 5 out of 100. All three of them were surprised, happiness shone in everyone's eyes. They didn't believe that they would succeed, but their team strategy worked. The monsters continued to advance, and although one of them was neutralized, the second still wanted to destroy its victims, growling menacingly and making loud, scary sounds. Thus, working as a team really helped. And now, the guys were ready to fight another monster that had emerged. The enemy did not hesitate for long, and, in a second, took off from his place and attacked the guys. Sun Wanwan immediately began to use her healing and restoration power and directed it at Jian Kai, who ran straight towards the monster. And Zhu and Kai were already rushing towards the monster that was preparing to attack them. But there was no longer any fear in the guys' eyes, only a firm belief that they must survive and defeat this beast. All this was observed by Professor Li and Su Linglin, who was very surprised when she saw that the guy's wristwatch was shining, which meant that the guys had managed to kill 2 animals. I couldn't figure out how the 3 of them could do this, if even the whole group was powerless in the face of such danger. The professor confirmed the girl's assumptions, saying that Nuanyuan's watch cannot say that she has enough strength to cope with such a danger. The pioneers on her team are also not strong enough. Only Junkai stands out, whose photo and parameters the system displayed on the screen so that everyone could evaluate the abilities of a guy whose profession was not found in the system. His name, gender, age of 18 years, and place of residence, located in the Middle River city of Shanti, were indicated there, but the star's profession was truly unknown. It seemed impossible to Su Lingling, because how could the profession of the bearer of a power capable of killing 2 beast-like creatures be unknown? Discussions continued for a long time, until the evening. Everyone tried to find out more about the newcomer. At this time, the guy's inventory showed that he had picked up 2 corpses of a human-like beast of the 2nd level. Having fallen to the ground, the satisfied and tired guys could not believe that they were able to cope with the monsters. Ju even said that he didn't expect his brother Kai to be so smart. Then Sun Wanwan stood up and said that since they have enough strength to do this, they will easily pass the test. Ju agreed and said that they could immediately head to the fountain. But then Kai's voice was heard, saying that they had no need to rush, because there was still enough time to reach Shanxi, and then the guy suggested slowing down the pace a little. These words caused bewilderment and questions in the eyes of his friends, who did not understand why it took them so long to get to their goal. Jiankai replied that everyone knows that after completing a test they give you points, and these points can be exchanged for anything. However, the first 3 pioneers to reach the top will be awarded with special equipment. It turns out that after training, the equipment will be a very pleasant bonus for a beginner, and since they can kill animals, they can therefore get points for their corpses. And with a large number of points, their group will just be able to qualify for the top 3. Then why not try to kill monsters for points and equipment before achieving the main goal? The idea seemed interesting and tempting. Sunwanwan Yuanzhu looked at their partner with interest, considering his proposal, and eventually agreed. A few hours later, after the next monster was killed, Zhu stood in the shadows of the night, shaking with fear, in front of whom a snake slithered, and asked Cain whether it was really worth earning these points like this. Then more poisonous snakes appeared behind Zhu, which frightened him greatly. So much so that he already thought that he would be the first to die here. But Kai, who was sitting on a tree, encouraged his friend and told him to be bolder because he is a martial arts master, therefore created to be a tank and a damage dealer. In addition, the concentrated Su Nuanwen was sitting nearby, who can always help treat battle wounds. Therefore, dying at the moment will not be as easy as it seems, despite the fact that poisonous snakes have already attacked Zhu from behind. But this was just a distraction. Kai jumped out of hiding and used his crushing strength to destroy the snakes, and he succeeded. In this way, 3 snakes of the first level were killed, which increased the experience gain to 10 points out of 100. But the snakes did not end, so Kai continued to use his power to destroy them. There is a certain rule on the star. The one who kills gets experience, and since Kai is so far the only one who is capable of killing monsters, the guys unanimously decided that he would be the first to gain experience. And not in vain, because the snakes were already flying at Kai at high speed, but he destroyed them with one blow of his spear. His strength was truly impressive and grew with each monster he killed, so Kai was confident that he could ensure the safety of his team. A day later, Kai saw a notification on the system interface. Congratulations to player Jiang Kai for reaching 100 in a 100 experience. Your level has been raised to level 2. The multiplier effect has also worked, so you get double points. Great. With just 1 kill of land snakes, he rose to the 2nd level, Kai thought. And after the system notified about the increase in level, Jiang Kai's characteristics increased. Characteristics window. Pathfinder, Jiang Kai profession, gambler, level. 2nd, characteristics. 8 strength, 12 constitution, 18 agility, 18 spirit, 0 defense, critical damage chance, 0.1%. Critical damage, 2,000%. Experience, 0-200. Nuanuan congratulated Kai on his level up, and Zhu asked if he was already feeling better. Satisfied, Kai boasted that after increasing the level, a total of 20 points were added, and now he has as many as 56. Greatly surprised, Zhu and Nuanuan looked at him with wide eyes and bewilderment. Zhu also added that they usually give 10 points, and asked Kai how he got 20, and Yuanzhu only has 26 points. Pioneer, Yuanzhu, profession, martial artist, level. 1st, characteristics, strength, 8, constitution, 8, agility, 5, spirit, 5, defense, 0. Critical damage chance, 15%, critical damage, 200%, experience, 0-100. Nuanuan also added that 56 points at the 2nd level is too much, and in terms of strength, it does not lag behind the 4th level, and Nuanuan has only 12 points. Pathfinder, Su Nuanuan profession, healer, level. 1st, characteristics, strength, 2, constitution, 2, agility, 4, spirit, 4, defense, 0, chance of critical damage, 5%, critical damage, 200%, experience, G100. Kai said that it's all thanks to his special profession and his rewards are doubled. But so are his punishments, so he can't make mistakes. Surprised, Nuanuan said that she still didn't understand his profession. But she was very cool. Just as the annoyed Zhu admitted that he was much better than his martial artist. Kai saw the notification. Since the player has reached level 2, he is entitled to 1 new skill. But since you have the multiplier skill, your skill is doubled. Stunned, Kai could not even imagine that at the 2nd level you could get a new skill. Moreover, he received 2 at once. Also perplexed, Zhu exclaimed that Kai is also capable of this, and Nuanuan simply replied, "Great." Again, Kai saw the system notification. Yes, you are being granted a skill. A card in the ghost's hand. Card in the ghost's hand. When throwing objects, the flight power is increased by 20%. When you use other cards, accept the same card. The effect of the action increases by 200%, but the energy consumption increases by 100%. At the same time, skills can be improved. The second skill I learned was focusing the ghost eye. Ghost eye. Focus. Your vision range is increased by 50%. Energy consumption is increased by 100%. Skills can also be improved. Looking at the two new skills, Kai thought that two new skills at once, although he had not fully understood them yet. They seemed to be very useful in his profession. Kai became stronger, so he invited the team to go further to earn experience points. Nuanuan immediately agreed, and Zhu said to himself, "Damn. Why him?" 2 days passed. Su Lanlin, who was worried about Nuanuan, watched the big screen, where there was a lot of information. At this moment, Professor Li told Inspector Su that 2 days had already passed and nothing bad had happened to her sister, and Su Li asked if this was true. Next, the grinning Lanlin thought that the new guy turned out to be tenacious. It seems his name is Jiang Kai. And at this time, a security guard rushes towards them into the main office as fast as he can. He made an urgent announcement that danger had been detected in the newcomer's territory and asked everyone to gather. Everyone looked at him in bewilderment and at the same time cast questioning glances in his direction to find out in more detail what he meant. Answering the question, he began to report that the enemy country had sent its people to the newcomer zone. An invasion was expected, but the commander-in-chief immediately did not answer anything intelligible. Next, Wei Ying, the commander-in-chief of the city of Zhangzhong, with the most serious look, gave the order to everyone to prepare. Frightened, Lanlin anxiously asked if it was true that a large-scale invasion was taking place. The commander-in-chief regrettably admitted that if this were a lie, he would not have come here. Frustrated, Lanlin realized that they would be attacked by stowaways. This is a special profession of the enemy country L. They specialize in killing newcomers. Advanced players cannot and should not enter the beginner zone, so as not to hinder their development, and in this zone, they are on their own. However, unfortunately for all newcomers, the stowaway squad of Country L is different from other players. Free riders have special skills that allow them to penetrate newcomer zones in the territories of other countries. It is also logical that they have gaming experience and are stronger than newcomers, and at the same time, free riders use very brutal methods of killing. So beginners may have psychological problems from such terrible suffering. The goal of free riders is to make newcomers afraid of the Devil's Star and increase the chances of other players for successful completion. And very often beginners after this are very afraid to return to play and do not agree under any conditions. And they say that it is better to die than to go there again. Su Lanlin became very angry because of this situation and hit the table with her fist with all her strength, accompanied by dissatisfied words. From the realization of this and the fact that her sister was there, who was too weak, so thoughts arose that when these animals attacked, Commander-in-Chief Wei Ying said that a large-scale attack by the stowaway army has already begun. So the newcomers must be trained and prepared for the fact that none of the newcomers will survive. The friends continued to walk through the night forest in search of new monsters to defeat them and increase their level. Suddenly Kai stopped abruptly and turned around, hearing a strange rustling from afar. And this alerted him. Zhu didn't immediately understand what was the matter because he hadn't really heard anything, and asked his friend what was the matter and why they stopped. Raising his spear above himself, Jian Kai pointed it towards the thickets, saying that he was sure that there was someone there. But Zhu only irritably asked why Kai was doing this, because it was better for them to continue on their way. Nuanuan said uncertainly that there was no one in the place where Kai was aiming, but the guy, using his special skill of excellent vision, was sure that the prey was definitely hiding a little further. And when he was sure of this, he confidently and with all his strength threw the spear in the chosen direction. The spear rushed over a huge distance with tremendous speed, raising clouds of dust and wind behind it. Then a strange sound was heard deep from the forest, which definitely attracted the attention of the entire team. Kai shouted out what had happened to him, and, under the perplexed glances of Zhu and Nuanuan, ran in the direction where he had previously thrown his spear. Zhu was sure that there was nothing there, because it was impossible to notice it with ordinary vision, especially in the dark night forest. But having caught up with Kai, the guys saw a huge second-level wild boar, which was killed by Jian Kai's spear. Thus, the guy gained 199 experience points out of 200. Zhu was shocked by what he saw, and could not believe that Kai had such a keen eye that he was able to notice the beast at such a distance. Nuanuan just watched Kai in surprise. After all, the guy not only saw a wild boar, but also killed it from a great distance. But Kai, taking his spear out of the animal's carcass, replied that there was nothing surprising here, because it was all thanks to his new skills. Then another notification from the system appeared in front of the guy, which asked if Kai wanted to receive the corpse of a wild boar X1, the carcass of a wild boar with sharp spikes X19, the spikes of which can be used for weapons? Kai agreed. To kill the beast, the guy used the card in the ghost's hand skill, which increased the damage, thanks to the focusing of the ghost's eye. His vision became better, and now he could follow the attacks. In other words, the enemy may not even notice Kai when he can already start aiming at him. But this is not so important, because Kai is now only 1 point short of the 3rd level. Then Kai suggested that his team kill more monsters. Nuanuan readily agreed, and Ju said upsetly that he was still at the 1st level. But the friends went further along the river, not knowing that stowaways were sitting right at the bottom, waiting for their victims in the form of newcomers. When we saw 3 pioneers walking along the shore, we were immediately happy, since we didn't have to wait long for them. They did not think that it would take so little time to find the victims. But now, they were ready to do their favorite job, getting out of the depths of the river. Rising above the water, one of the stowaways joyfully said that it was finally time for fun, and stared intently at the frightened newcomers. Covering the only girl on their team, Kai turned to the guys with questions about who they were and what they needed from them. But the stowaway did not answer, but only began to take his saber out of its sheath, saying that they were, in fact, good people and should not be afraid of them. They just want to rip the guy's chest out and make him bleed. All these were the true desires of the armed men approaching the children. One of them again suggested a scenario that would consist of skinning the boys alive and then feeding it to the animals. All this alarmed the friends, who were surrounded by enemies on all sides. The next moment, one of the free riders decided to add and summarize the information, saying that they have only one goal: to prevent newcomers from passing the test. John Kai turned to the source of this voice and was horrified by what he saw. In front of him stood a man wearing a metal mask that looked like a bird mask with a sharp beak. That man smiled maliciously and mockingly, looking at the current situation. It was a smuggler, the captain of the 2nd team of stowaways. And his goal, like the goal of all those present from the team of free riders, was to prevent the pioneers from reaching their goal. Here Nuanuan, standing in a fighting stance, shouted to Kai that she knew who these people were opposite, calling them free riders who specialized in killing newcomers. Hearing this, Kai and Ju instantly turned to the girl, processing the information. They couldn't believe that they were in such a dangerous situation. Having analyzed the opponents using the system, Nuanuan added that all of their opponents are currently above the 3rd level, and it was too difficult to cope with them, especially for beginners. But the 3rd level free riders seemed nothing compared to the free riders who were also here, whose highest level was the 5th. Looking at the team of stowaways that showed up, Kai got scared and wondered if they were all on the 5th level. Its current characteristics, at best, can compete with the 4th level, but not with the 5th. With a menacing look, the captain of the 2nd team gave the order to the brothers so that they should not stand. Kai suddenly started running, thinking at the same time what they should all do. While moving, Kai shouted to Ju and Nuanuan to stay together and he needed to split up with them, so they accelerated in a different direction. One of the team of free riders, looking at the actions of the newcomers, began to joke that they had only just begun to act. So slow? The captain told 2 3rd-level stowaways to go in pursuit of Kai, and the rest to go after Ju and Nuanuan with him. 2 stowaways rushed in pursuit of Kai along a long forest path, and Kai himself ran very quickly. Then the pursuers realized that he was quite fast. But with the thought that he could not escape them, they ran on. They chased through the dark forest for quite a long time, chasing the guy, thinking that they could not lose him from their field of vision. However, for a moment they stand confused, looking in different directions, but Kai is still nowhere to be seen. The stowaways were not upset, but only took it all as a game and promised that when they found him, they would break all his legs. At this unexpected moment for the pursuers, Kai suddenly rushed towards them with a huge attack. One of the stowaways noticed the attack in time and was surprised that Kai decided to fight them, blocking the blow and saying that the garbage was not their opponent. However, the free rider underestimated Kai, because the block he placed did not help him, and he flew up from the blow. His stunned ally, who did not expect such a turn of events, looked at it without understanding, with fear in his eyes. Without hesitating for a second and taking advantage of the moment, Kai again decided to strike at the already knocked down enemy and flew into him with his spear. The victim's ally, worried about his friend and hesitantly asking if everything was okay, because he had already flown up, and at that moment horror appeared in his eyes. Looking at the defeated friend who had broken a tree, there was a misunderstanding in his thoughts. How could this be? How did he died? Joyful Kai was also surprised at this time, asking himself the question with a grin. Do all free riders die so easily? The menacing and confident Kai, walking with a bloodthirsty look towards the second stowaway, said that there was nothing to envy. The puzzled stowaway didn't know what to do and began to analyze Kai, hesitantly asking if Kai wasn't a newbie. How did he manage to kill a fellow stowaway of even the 3rd level? After analysis, the stowaway saw Kai's characteristics. Level 2, Strength 10, Dexterity 20, Constitution 10, Spirit 20, Defense 0, Critical hit probability unknown, Critical hit power unknown. The stowaway was even more frightened, thinking that at the 3rd level he himself had only 45 attributes, while Kai already had 60. Kai dealt a fatal blow to the stowaway, who at that moment was amazed and preoccupied with thoughts. After killing the 2nd enemy, Kai began to leave him, hearing the last dying sob from the defeated man. Lost in thought, Kai moved a little away from the 2 dead stowaways, and was glad that he had succeeded. Because in terms of general characteristics, he was not inferior to the 4th level, so he managed to deal with the 3rd ones. Remembering the proposal to scatter, Kai wanted to attract a small part of free riders, because it would be more convenient and easier to kill. And at the very beginning of the run, Kai's thoughts were occupied with the fact that he had almost reached the 3rd level, and that if he killed the stowaway, then Kai saw the system message, "You managed to kill the stowaway. Before the victim's body dissipates, do you want to appropriate his experience for yourself?" And an explanation from the system that you can get up to 100 experience points, which will definitely not be superfluous to you. Kai, seeing this information, thought that he gets more experience for killing stowaways, so killing monsters is not necessary. Kai replied to the system that in this case, he needed all their experience points, to which he saw a message from the system, "Okay." And 2 strange, bright, and swirling energies rose from the corpses of the stowaways. After this scene, Kai saw a new notification from the system. "Congratulations on reaching level 3. Kai was very happy to finally see himself at level 3. Now his strength was 12, Constitution 16, Agility 24, Spirit 24, Defense 0, Chance of critical damage 0.1%, Critical damage power 20,000%, Experience points 199 out of 400. Now the total attribute score is 76 points, and level 5 free riders only have 60 points. And now, having removed the enemy's watch and received additional guards, Kai confidently headed towards where his friends were. The confident guy decided it was time to return and show them all his strength. At this time, Ju was fighting with the stowaways at his last breath, and his entire body was severely crippled. Tired Nuan constantly directed her power towards Ju in order to heal and cure the guy. But her strength was also running out. One of the stowaways mocked the pioneers, saying that they were lucky to meet representatives of the best professions, a martial artist and a doctor. The 2nd free rider confirmed that these are indeed good professions. But the enemies who surrounded Nuan and Ju now wanted only one thing, to torture the poor, tired pioneers to death. The girl, with tears in her eyes from fatigue, asked Ju if Kai would be able to return, given that 2 stowaways were chasing him. Standing up, looking ahead and gritting his teeth, Ju said that Kai would definitely return. He will never give up so easily, especially when such a girl is nearby, and especially when his friends and family were in danger. It was really out of character for the guy who was quickly approaching the battlefield from the depths of the forest. When Kai's loved ones are under threat, then everything ceases to matter, and he will come to the rescue at any cost, even if there are a bunch of free riders around who, as one of them put it, have already finished with foreplay and started attacking. But Kai could not let this happen and jumped out of the forest, full of enormous crushing power and the desire to protect his loved ones. The next moment, the enemies began to fall lifelessly to the ground with their heads pierced. No one even had time to see who did it and how it happened, since Kai was very fast. Looking at the familiar thorns, the surprised Nuan could not understand what happened, and how it all happened in 1 second. But Ju understood everything immediately. He knew that his friend Kai would definitely return to help them, and this was just in time. The captain of the stowaways stood in a stupor, trying to understand what just happened and who killed his fighters. He ordered the sneaking enemy to come out and fight him personally, but then a strange rustling was heard behind the captain, and he turned to find out where the sound was coming from. But what he saw did not make him happy, and even frightened him, because he did not notice anyone suspicious, and thought that, most likely, this was definitely a representative of some new profession. This frightened the free rider so much that, to the surprise of everyone, he decided to simply run away from the battlefield. Nuan noticed this, and was the first to say that the free rider was running away, very quickly and swiftly for fear of getting hit. But it was too late to run away, because the angry and full of strength Jiankai was already flying towards the enemy. His furious look confirmed his words. No one will leave after hurting his little brother, so now the life of this free rider is only in Kai's hands. The guy caught up with the captain of the 2nd team of stowaways in one jump, and, with the help of a spear, was easily able to destroy him, piercing him with his weapon. As soon as everything calmed down, Ju fell to his knees doomedly, creating clouds of dust. This happened right in the center of the clearing, along the perimeter of which defenseless stowaways from the second team were scattered. Kai approached his friends, saying that the free riders were over, and asked Nuanuan, who was looking at him, if she was all right. The girl ran up to Kai and was very glad that he had returned, but then she excitedly started talking about Ju, who, according to her, was seriously injured. His wounds were so severe that Nuanuan could no longer help him, so the guy could simply die. Looking at his friend, Kai, coughing, said that he knew that he would return to them, but he could not go further with them. Ju could no longer speak or even keep his head up, so he fell destitute to the ground. Ju, lying almost in a dying state, had already said goodbye to Kai and Nuanuan, said that the adventures with them were his best memories, and asked to take his share. Depressed, Ju asked his friends to try hard so that they could pass the test. Nuanuan could no longer stand it and just cried hysterically, repeating Brother Ju's name. In response to this, very irritated Kai, clenching his hands into fists, sternly called Juji. Kai paused after his words and threw the half-dead body of the stowaway onto the stomach of Ju, who was lying on his deathbed. Nuanuan, with her eyes wide open, was very surprised, and Ju almost choked from such a fall on his stomach. Kai explained that he deliberately did not kill the stowaways so that someone could replenish their experience and recover. Nuanuan added that it is really possible to recover in the Devil Star by taking experience from other players, and Ju was surprised that this was possible and exclaimed that in this case he was saved. And Kai, who rolled his eyes, said that he knew that Ju was faking it. Smiling, Kai said that these stowaways were not going to let Ju live, so he also asked him not to feel sorry for them. Greatly rejoicing, Ju and Nuanuan grinned and wished the stowaways a good subsequent reincarnation. Looking at the stowaway lying on the ground, spruce and alive, Ju and Nuanuan once again wished him good luck. Approaching the exhausted free rider together with Ju and Nuanuan, Kai asked him whether it would be cool that he would become their donor, and Ju agreed that they would take advantage of his voluntary sacrifice. Insanely frightened, the stowaway began to shout, demons, don't come near! At the same time, in the department for transporting stowaways in the city of El, at the Research Institute, scientists saw notifications about all these cases. The disgruntled scientists were outraged that they had been destroyed by some newcomer, while discussing how cruel he was and the fact that they had taken all the experience points. The top of the city of El, putting forward the theory of the emergence of a new profession capable of resisting free riders, did not understand how their squad could suffer like this. At the same time, in the kingdom of the gods they were also watching, but not for free riders, but for their newcomers. Worried about the current situation, the observer said that according to the latest information, Nuanuan and her team encountered free riders. Flustered by the observer's words, Lanlin sadly assumed that Nuanuan had already died. And Wei Ying, who is the commander-in-chief of Jiangzhong City, said that no newcomer has ever managed to escape from free riders, so Lanlan can prepare for her death. Jubilant at receiving new information, the observer with his head raised said that he did not think so. And looking at the new information, he added that Nuanuan not only did not die during the battle with the stowaways, but also increased her level. Stunned by the observer's words, Wei Ying and Lanlin looked at the observer questioningly with their mouths open. Drinking water from his thermos, Wei Ying questioned how the newcomers managed to increase their level when fighting the stowaways, and questioningly suggested that the stowaways could help the newcomers kill the monsters. The observer replied that Nuanuan could not reach a new level by killing monsters, and also that she rose 2 levels at once and began to talk about whether it was possible. Without allowing the observer to finish, the commander-in-chief and Lanlin unanimously suggested that she had killed the stowaway. Realizing all the information received, Wei Ying dropped the thermos from his hands in shock, and the water from it spilled onto the floor. The commander-in-chief began to walk sharply, and the perplexed Lanlin called out to him with a questioning look. Approaching the data screen and the observers, Wei Ying loudly ordered to show him the data on Nuanuan's command, and the observers immediately began to carry out the order. One of the observers began to display data about the team on the screen, and the seriously interested commander-in-chief studied it. Looking at the screen, Wei Ying saw the following information for each team member. Name, Jiang Kai. Level, unknown. Profession, unknown. Name, Su Nuanuan. Level, 3. Profession, healer. Name, Yuan Zhu. Level, 3. Profession, martial artist. After reviewing the team's information, the shocked commander-in-chief saw that they had reached level 3 and concluded that without killing the stowaways, they would not have been able to rise 2 levels so quickly. Also surprised, Lanlin could not believe it, because Nuanuan does not have combat abilities, and Wei Ying suggested that Jiang Kai could deal with all the stowaways, but this seems strange. Next, the commander-in-chief, trusting his intuition, pointed to Kai's handiwork, and asked why his indicators were not determined. An observer who was looking for this exact information reported that the problem is that all travelers are given special watches to determine information, and Jiang Kai's is the oldest, traveler's clock, the first clock used on the Devil's Star. And the server for this model stopped being serviced more than 10 years ago, and they are not connected to the internet, so Jiang Kai's information is not available. Lan, having heard the said information, was surprised at how much time had already passed. And Wei Ying did not expect that Kai was using an antique watch. The commander-in-chief, gritting his teeth, said to himself that the situation had turned out to be very interesting. After this, Wei Ying ordered that real information about Jiang Kai's performance be collected for him because he wants to see his characteristics. And his subordinates immediately began to carry out the order. After defeating several stowaways, Zhu regained his full life capacity, increasing his skills to level 3. His strength was 16, constitution 16, agility 7, spirit 7, defense 0, critical chance 15%, critical power 200%, and points 0 out of 400. Nuanyuan was also happy when she saw her level 3 parameters. Strength 6, constitution 6, agility 8, spirit 12, defense 0, critical damage probability 5%, critical damage power 200%, experience points 0 out of 400. Zhu also received a new professional skill, ground stomping, and now he can easily hit enemies who are nearby. Nuanyuan also received the healer's benevolence skill, and now her abilities are improving. Smirking, Kay said that these were really good skills for a healer and martial artist. Zhu immediately caught the competitive spirit, telling Kai that now that he was one level higher, he could now also fight on equal terms with free riders. But Kai did not share his enthusiasm. After waiting a short pause, Kai added that he also raised the level to 4 and opened his parameters, which shocked Zhu. Strength was 16, constitution 20, agility 30, spirit 30, defense Shiazhu, critical damage chance 0.1%, critical damage power 20,000%, experience points 199 out of 400. Shocked Zhu, clutching his head, could not understand how Kai rose to level 4 so quickly, because he had just been at level 2. Nuanyuan enthusiastically noted that Kai also had 96 attribute points. Such indicators are equivalent to level 8. Kai calmly replied that when he killed 2 stowaways, he was given the 3rd level, and when he returned here and killed 5 more, he was able to reach the 4th level. Zhu shouted with envy and displeasure that Kai was again better than him, and Nuanyuan, approaching Kai, asked what they would do next. Lost in thought, Kai said that he heard the captain of the stowaways say that they belonged to the 2nd group of stowaways, which means only one thing, that there is also a 1st detachment whose members they need to kill. This statement shocked Zhu and Nuanyuan. Half a day later, somewhere in the forest, where there are usually many newcomers, the 1st detachment of stowaways walked in the dark. Walking in a whole crowd, they, laughing and joking, discussed the pioneers whom they had already managed to destroy, as well as the losers from the 2nd group who died at the hands of the newcomers. Sitting in the trees, the stowaways of the 1st group also mocked their colleagues, not realizing how weak these guys from the 2nd team were that they were destroyed so quickly. One of the stowaways of the 1st group made such jokes, saying that it was high time to change them, and continued to walk with his squad of level 5 stowaways. Here, the flow of jokes was stopped by the serious captain of the squad, saying that it was time to stop relaxing, since the authorities had already said that the matter was serious, so you need to behave accordingly. But the squad members were sure that the newcomers were limited to the 5th level in any case, so it would not be difficult for them to deal with them. But all this time, the detachment, which had no idea about anything, was being watched by those same newcomers. Zhu was dubious about the idea of fighting level 5 stowaways, and a frightened Nuanyuan wasn't sure they'd survive if they went there. But Kai interrupted their negative thoughts, saying that they shouldn't worry, because even if he couldn't kill them, he would definitely be able to protect his friends. In addition, if you don't kill them now, the stowaways will kill other newcomers, and this cannot be allowed. So Kai rushed towards the enemies, intending to strike first. But the captain of the detachment immediately suspected something was wrong when he heard a noise behind him, and his gaze immediately rushed in that direction. Seeing Kai's shadow, the captain warned the party and told them to be careful as someone was approaching. Seeing the guy, the stowaways laughed, realizing that it was just a level 4 beginner running towards them. But, since it was clear that the guy got his level quite quickly, the free riders guessed that this was the newcomer who defeated the 1st squad. This news did not frighten, but even delighted the captain of the squad, who grinned, appreciating the capabilities of the newcomer, and said with excitement that it was time to attack. And then he ordered all his fighters to remain in combat readiness and not dare to lose to the pioneers. The squad immediately aggressively rushed forward towards Kai, following the order. Leading the squad with him, Kai, watching the enemies chasing him, realized that things were bad, since they were maintaining the formation well. According to Kai's team's original plan, he was supposed to lure the enemy into a trap, where he would then get rid of each enemy separately and gradually. It would probably be better to catch the free riders one by one. But the squad chasing Kai is too large, and therefore it will definitely not be easy. It was necessary to figure out how to destroy the system. Now the main task for Kai was to save himself, and, if possible, kill several stowaways, since defeating an entire squad would be too difficult for them. And the problem wasn't that they didn't have countermeasures. It's just that if Kai still wants to defeat the free riders running towards him, then he needs to get rid of them all at once. Kai braked sharply, creating clouds of dust behind him, and turned towards the squad running towards him. He then raised his spear upward, beginning to activate his great strength to put it into the dash and strike. The next second, there was that same jerk, and Kai, instead of running away, began to fly towards the enemy, charged with enormous energy. He understood that he would have to put in a lot of effort. Seeing the guy's actions, the stowaways stopped, looking at Kai in bewilderment, trying to understand his actions and intentions. But one of the squad members quickly got his bearings and headed towards Kai, mocking the guy, saying that he was so scared that he had already forgotten which way to run away. The stowaway made a quick dash and, with his sharp weapon in the form of a blade, deftly cut Kai flying next to him on the shoulder. Blood flowed from the guy's wound. He clenched his teeth, trying to collect himself and assess the current situation. He had a plan, but the stowaways were not yet close enough to the required place to carry it out. So he flew past a member of the squad, who thought that the guy was just running away. The stowaways from the squad were ready to skin the guy. But Kai was not as simple as they thought. They chased the guy, not realizing that he was luring them into a trap, because they were still not close enough to it. Having surrounded Kai, the stowaways began their attacks. But the guy dodged each of them too easily, using moves that required tremendous speed and agility. Kai's face was focused and serious, but his parameters were enough to easily dodge attacks. Looking at how his subordinates could not defeat the guy, the captain of the squad looked at what was happening in surprise, not understanding what was happening. At that time, Kai was flying straight towards one of the frightened stowaways, who could not understand how a guy with only level 4 could withstand attacks from level 5. Looking at the guy through the prism of the system, one of the stowaways noticed that something was wrong with him and told the captain about it. The squad had little time to determine Kai's characteristics, but once they analyzed him with high-tech watches, they found that they were unable to examine all of his attributes. But judging by the parameters, the agility that was indicated was at least as much as 30 points. The captain was shocked by this information, because a beginner's agility points simply cannot be 30. One of the squad members suggested that his comrade was mistaken, because at level 5 he had less than 20 points, so the guy could not have gained so many points only at level 4. The free rider who was analyzing Jiang Kai exclaimed that there was no way the clock was wrong. And since Kai really has such high agility, then in this case one can ask the question, who else is chasing who here? The enraged captain of the first squad shouted that the situation had reached a terrible situation and that they were under attack, so they needed to escape. The rest of the stowaways could not immediately understand what was happening and began to look around with questioning glances. Kai, who was among the free riders, grinned and said that he had fooled them quite easily, but they only realized now. And in this situation they had nowhere to run. It was too late. While Kai distracted the detachment of stowaways, Zhuzi had already approached them. Zhu came very close, using his new ground-stomping skill, and pinned all the stowaways to the ground, and as they fell, they could only sigh. Jiang Kai, praising Zhu for a job well done, asked him to leave the rest to him. Kai entered into battle with knocked-down enemies. He moved very quickly, and he began to kill them with his spikes using a throwing skill. Just a few moments passed before the first members of the detachment of stowaways, one after another, fell to the ground dead from a blow from a spike. Thus, their squad was destroyed, and Kai, sighing with relief, said that it was decided with them. Zhu, seeing the result of this massacre, was dumbfounded and envious, and thought about what happened to Kai, because he destroyed 9 representatives of level 5 so quickly. Kai saw a new system notification that said that he had received 2,000 experience points for killing level 5 stowaways, and that his experience had reached the maximum, so he was promoting to level 5 novices. Kai also realized that for each level 5 traveler he received 400 experience points, since he killed 5, and the new attribute values became as follows: Strength, 20, Constitution, 24, Agility, 36, Spirit, 36, Defense, critical probability the monster and the power of critical damage have not changed. Nuanuan congratulated Kai on reaching the 5th level, saying that this is the limit that can be achieved in the beginner zone, and Kai replied that each of them simply had a lot of experience. To this, Kai added that he needed to hurry up, because he still left survivors. Nuanuan and Zhu agreed with Kai and asked what they would do next. Kai, after thinking a little, said that before he needed to kill monsters to get experience points, but now there is no such need, so he will simply help his friends, and after they gain enough experience points, they will head to the finish line. Zhu and Nuanuan, who were in 7th heaven, happily supported Kai's proposal and set off to become stronger. Continuing his way through the dark forest, Kai advised his friends to be more careful, since on the way to the finish line, they need to score as many points as possible. But the closer they get to the finish line, the more ferocious the monsters become. And even in the beginner areas, there can be bosses, so you need to be careful. Then a terrible roar was heard from the bushes, which immediately alerted the friends, because only monsters emit such a roar. It turned out to be another monster that growled very loudly, but then the sounds began to fade away. Having walked a little further, the friends saw 2 dead monsters lying on the ground, who were killed by something more sinister, and it was scary. Looking out from the shelter, Nuanuan noticed in surprise that it was the corpse of an animal. Zhu noticed that the monster had many bite marks, which meant someone had bitten it to death. Looking at all this, Kai decided to use one of his talents, namely focusing the ghost's eye, to scout out the situation. The guy's eye glowed green and various symbols appeared on it. This means that the force has begun to act. He just saw a golden light in the distance, and it seemed that it was this golden creature that killed this monster. Having heard about some strange golden creature, the friends were surprised and began to think what it could be, until strange sparks began to appear behind them. In an instant, the sparkles turned into a bright golden flash that illuminated the dark forest. A large golden sparkling ball was sneaking towards Nuanuan and Zhu, who were trying to figure out what kind of creature it was and whether it could attack them. But then the golden ball suddenly picked up speed, turning into an earthly comet, and began to attack Nuanuan and Zhu. He rushed around the girl so quickly that he left cuts on her body and tore her clothes, which was very unpleasant and scary. Zhu, also trying to protect himself from the cutting light, realized that they were attacked by the same creature that killed the monster. But then this strange thing left the guys and headed towards Kai. But he didn't even flinch in front of the small golden ball. The guy took a closer look and focused his gaze on the very center of the ball, and what he saw surprised him. It revealed his perplexed expression on his face. The wounded Zhu and Nuanuan shouted to Kai to be careful, since this creature was very dangerous, and the guy needed to be on guard with it. But Kai only extended his hand towards the golden sparkling ball, thereby creating a collision of 2 forces, which generated a huge flash of light. His friends, Zhu and Nuanuan, never ceased to be amazed at Kai's capabilities and abilities, and this time she also managed to surprise them. After all, Kai was holding in his hand a small rodent, which, apparently, was that dangerous golden ball, cutting and biting everyone around. This rodent turned out to be an ordinary small hamster, which most likely was shocked that it could get caught and reveal its true identity. Zhu was still looking in surprise at his friend, who had so quickly caught the source of danger, and Nuangua also noticed in surprise that the guy was also holding it in his hands. Looking at the rodent, Kai asked in bewilderment and even disappointment whether his friends really thought this thing was fast. It's just an ordinary mouse. The rodent began to squeak loudly and displeasedly and threaten Kai, saying that he would regret it. The guy grinned, saying that it seemed that the mouse was too impudent. Therefore, I decided to release the rodent, surprised by this action, because it certainly could no longer pose a danger to them. The hamster's face immediately became angry and began to sparkle with golden sparks again, accompanied by a loud squeak. As if rebelling, the rodent charged again, and with renewed strength and great speed, again attacked Kai, who had been calmly watching him all this time. Zhu had already started shouting to Kai, saying why did he let this little mouse go? She was even able to kill a monster. But Kai, in the next moment, simply grabbed the rodent again with one hand and squeezed it in his fist. And then he released the rodent again, saying that everything was fine, because for him it was already too slow, because the guy used the ghost eye focusing plus agility attribute. Therefore, in a second, Kai was able to catch and release the rodent 10 times. This cycle could simply repeat itself ad infinitum. Zhu watched all this, not believing that Kai was so fast, and Nuanuan only admired the guy's abilities, considering it an incredibly cool skill. A few minutes later, after the mouse tried to attack Kai, it was exhausted and simply collapsed from fatigue right in Kai's hand. Zhu, watching how Kai deftly drove the little mouse, experienced deep admiration for the extraordinary speed and agility of his friend. Kai, looking at the monster killed by this cute mouse, did not know whether he would be useful to them, but who would refuse a free assistant because he would never be superfluous. Kai, stroking the mouse, turned to Nuanyuan with the fact that she had almost reached the 4th level and said that she must quickly find the corpses and take the remnants of experience from them in order to reach the 5th level at the end of the test. Nuanyuan, admiring the cute little mouse, agreed with Kai. Ju in the background just sat and was alone with his not very pleasant thoughts, because he felt the feeling that he was some kind of trash and not a martial artist. At this time, a stranger was walking along a path in the forest, and the lovely light of the full moon illuminated his path. Leaning against a tree, he stopped and looked at the exit from the forest, thinking that after so many days he had finally managed to reach the final point of the beginner zone. He saw the city of Shenao, illuminated by the light of a beautiful satellite, and the city looked like a single building growing out of the ground and rising to the very sky. The stranger, walking up the long staircase, observed how the smooth surface and sharp corners of this building created the impression of modern architecture. At the entrance to this fortress, the stranger was met by 3 formidable men, standing in full uniform and with spears in their hands. They congratulated the newcomer on passing the newcomer's test, and the newcomer's companion, Xiaotao, said that the stranger could now officially become a Devil Star traveler. Then he was told that, unfortunately, he did not come first. However, the rating is not so important, but passing the test itself is important. The stranger, raising his hands up, decided to say in response that what difference does it make that he was not the first to come. After a pause, the stranger majestically stated why those greeting them decided that he was trying to run here, and majestically demonstrated his trophies from the killed monsters. Those meeting the newcomers, thinking about how this newcomer was able to kill so many monsters, said that the rating is calculated by points, and the stranger has a lot of killed monsters, so he can exchange them for points. The smug stranger, showing arrogance and pride in his words, declared that this was nonsense for him, while removing his hood, and he said that he was the second master of the Huang family named Wei, and the future head of the guild, and he also underwent special training before he came here. Those who met the newcomers, wide-eyed, began to discuss that this was the Huang family, a member of the Xuanwu Guild, which is one of the top 10 guilds in Shenyao City, so they were not so surprised that Wei turned out to be so capable. Xiao Tao once again congratulated Wei that although he is not the first in terms of points, but in terms of power, he will definitely be among the top 10 in Shenyao City. Wei, spreading his arms to the sides and raising his head to the sky, declared with great conceit in his words that he was Huang Wei, which means he would definitely become great, and winning first place was only the first step. At this point, Huang Wei's appearance became grandiosely insane, and said that if he was given a little more time, the entire Devil Star would fall at his feet. Somewhere in the depths of the newcomer's zone, among the forest and its majestic trees, Kai, Ju, and Nuanwan were still walking. Kai, not understanding what was happening, thought why he had been walking for half a day, but had not yet met a single monster. What was the matter? Next, Kai suggested that maybe their little mouse was scaring off monsters, and Nuanuan, admiring this little mouse, said that such a cute animal definitely couldn't scare anyone away. Suddenly, every member of the rookie team became very scared because they heard a loud growl nearby. They, widening their eyes from such surprise, saw that a flock of ferocious animals was approaching them. The monsters were already very close, and the newbie team determined that it must be a pack of Twilight Wolves. Each Twilight Wolf represented a very strong and ferocious enemy, and in the middle of them in the center was an even larger wolf, whose paws emitted a strange glow. This wolf, with a scar all over his left eye, was the boss of the rookie zone of Shenyao City, namely the king of the Twilight Wolves. The rookie team, having noticed the Twilight Wolf King, determined that this was the boss of the rookie zone, which meant they were in the boss zone. While the team was thinking about this, a pack of Twilight Wolves, led by their king, surrounded the 3 players. Ju, with a frightened look and tears in his eyes, said that he had heard about the king of the Twilight Wolves, and that he was the most powerful creature in the beginner zone, whom no one had yet managed to kill, and asked the question of what they should do next. Kai, tightly clutching his spear in his hands, wondered what they should do, and that there were too many wolves. He himself could escape, but Ju and Nuanyuan would not be able to. Kai, without losing his composure, decided for himself that he would fight to the death, and shouted to Ju and Nuanyuan that there was no way to escape, so they could only break through. Then Kai, rushing to the attack, shouted that he needed to quickly kill the king of the Twilight Wolves, and his friends, terribly confused, agreed with Kai. Ju, shining with power and strength, at that moment also quickly gathered himself and began to use his skill. Kai, moving with great speed, approached the king of the Twilight Wolves, and behind Kai was already Ju, ready to strike a blow that should knock down all enemies. And so Ju, releasing a huge amount of energy in his blow, flew into the ground, which began to sway, knocking the Twilight Wolves off their feet. Zhu, praising his excellent skill, told Nuanyuan to take advantage of his technique, which she did. Kai, combining two skills at once in his attack, focused his eyes on the enemy and threw his daggers at him with great force, emitting a glow of colossal energy. Thus, a huge amount of Kai's energy was directed towards the Twilight Wolf King, who was no longer able to evade. The blow hit its target, and the wolf, clenching his teeth, growled loudly. But this blow could not cause any damage to him, and only angered the king. Seeing this, Zhu, Nuanyuan, and Kai were surprised to say the least when they realized that their efforts were in vain, and Kai's attack had no effect. The shocked Kai realized that he had failed to penetrate the defense of the level 5 Twilight Wolf King with his blow. But there was no time for reflection, since the beast did not waste a minute and immediately attacked the pioneers, revealing its sharp fangs. The rest of the pack of Twilight Wolves also began to quickly approach, trying to attack the circled, frightened newcomers. Tired and wounded by the claws and teeth of the wolves, Nuanyuan shouted that it seemed that the Wolf King had ordered his pack to launch a final attack. The equally wounded Zhu, screaming, asked Kai if they had another way to fight the Wolf King. Kai, while destroying another wolf, said that the defense of the King of Wolves is too strong. They surround him very quickly, so he will not be able to kill them all. Then something moved behind the guy's bosom. This was the same mouse, for whom the noise around him clearly prevented him from resting peacefully. Opening his eyes, the rodent looked displeased at what was happening, namely at the huge number of wolves grinning and attacking Kai and his team members. Having quickly analyzed the situation and turned his muzzle, the mouse found the culprit of all this bacchanalia in the person of the king of the Twilight Wolves. Kai continued to fight the wolves attacking him, brushing them off and defending himself with his spikes. But the mouse was not going to tolerate this. He was angry at the external noise, because of which he woke up. And now he was ready to wish all the attacking wolves an especially good morning. Sparking again and turning into a sparkling ball, the mouse collected all his anger remaining after his abrupt awakening and rushed towards his goal with great speed. This target was the culprit of his disturbed sleep, the king of the Twilight Wolves, who howled sharply from the powerful blow he received from the golden ball. Looking at this, Kai was very surprised to realize that the little mouse was able to bite through the fur of the Wolf King, thereby breaking through his level 5 defense. Next, Kai decided to use the power of his ghostly eye to better understand the situation. A further attack by the squeaking, disgruntled mouse failed, since the Wolf King's defense was too strong. But the rodent managed to leave a wound. But if the king's fur managed to be pierced, even if the defense was repaired again and restored, then you just need to aim at the wounded place. It was precisely because the Wolf King's defenses stopped working in the wounded place that Kai rushed towards the beast to complete his attack and defeat it. The blow hit the target. The king's wound began to sparkle due to Kai's energy that had entered it, and the Wolf King himself could not hold back a wild roar from terrible pain. The one who was most happy about this was the little mouse, who happily rolled off the fur of the Wolf King and jumped to the ground. Kai realized that this method really worked, and before the beast came to its senses, he began a second attack, already holding his spikes at the ready. Thanks to his ghost eye ability, Kai could easily see the wound hidden under the wolf's fur, aiming at it and hitting it right on target. In the end, Kai concentrated strongly and carried out the last most powerful and crushing blow, using the power of a 200-fold critical hit, from which everything around was illuminated with a flash of bright blue energy. From the bright light, Nuanyuan even covered her eyes with her hand, not believing what she just saw. Zhu voiced her thoughts out loud, saying in surprise that Kai was actually able to kill the king of the Twilight Wolves. Kai used the power of a critical hit in his attack, after which the Wolf King would definitely be defeated. But then the guy received a notification from the system. She congratulated the aspiring pioneer Jian Kai for defeating the first boss, the king of the Twilight Wolves. But Kai was surprised, not because of this, but because he wanted to defeat the boss in a different way. But he managed to use a 200 times critical strike, which was surprising and very powerful for him. This probably happened because the guy had not used the power of a critical strike for a long time, which allowed him to accumulate a large amount of power for this skill. The guy's thoughts were interrupted by Nuanyuan, who noticed that the wolves began to run away from them, not trying to fight further. Kai reacted quickly and asked Nuanyuan and Zhu if they had strength and were still able to fight. Zhu and the girl confidently replied that they could still fight, quickly focusing their gaze on the wolves backing away from them. Kai was pleased with this news, since now, without the king's command, this pack of wolves looks like nothing more than helpless lambs that are very easy to kill. Now he and his friends can destroy them all, taking the loot for themselves. Zhu also added that after what the wolves did to them, they couldn't be allowed to leave, so the pioneer team would have to kill them all. Zhu used his powers as a martial artist, and with one blow could deal with a wolf running away from him, thereby gaining experience points. Nuan and Jiankai are also not far behind, using their abilities and powers to destroy each of the pack of Twilight Wolves. They worked as a team, their strength increasing with each killed beast, whose corpses they took into their inventory. Kai allowed his friends to kill more wolves so that they would increase their level to 5th, and at the same time carefully ensured that not a single animal escaped. After some time, a field strewn with the corpses of wolves meant that it was finally over and it was time to move on. Of course, this was not planned and happened very unexpectedly, but in the end, Kai and his rookie friends succeeded in becoming the boss of the rookie district, something that no pioneer had ever done. Then Kai said that all this time he did not kill the wolves completely in order to allow his friends to do this to raise their points, and warned them that low-level wolves will only survive if they are killed in the near future, so the guys should hurry up. When Ju asked Kai what they should do next, the guy, realizing that they now already have a lot of trophies, they can move towards the finish line. 5 hours later, the friends managed to reach the territory belonging to their city of Shenao on the Devil Star. Nuan admired its size and color, and Kai said that this was not surprising, because this city is the largest base of activity for the inhabitants of Devil Star. Then Nuan noticed how the little mouse crawled out from Kai's bosom and rushed away. Kai also noticed this after the girl's words, but the guy replied that everything is fine, because this animal is free and can run wherever it wants. But if they are destined to meet again, then this will certainly happen. Finally, the guys reached their goal and went to the reception hall for newcomers on the Devil's Star. There were a large number of both pioneers and other more experienced soldiers there. Iz was escorted by one of the new recruit guides, who called himself Xiao Tao. He congratulated the guys on passing the test and led them into a room with other recruits. Kai asked Xiao Tao to show him the ranks of the other pioneers after passing the test. The recruit guide agreed, but was interrupted by the evil laughter of one of the recruits, who looked mockingly at the new arrivals. Looking at Kai, Huanwei continued to mock, saying that he did not expect that the brother of some loser working for his family would also decide to take the test. And then, continuing to smile maliciously, I decided to show him my rating. Kai was hurt by the guy's words, but he remained silent, only thinking that he assumed that Huang Wei would not return from the test before him. Then Wei opened the test statistics and laughed arrogantly, seeing himself in first place in the ranking. And then he joked ironically, saying that Kai's team also took first place, only from the other end of the list. Kai's arrogance was transmitted to everyone standing nearby. Now everyone looked at the newcomers who had come as a bunch of losers who should be ashamed to ask about ranks because they look pathetic. And most likely they don't even have trophies. Jinkai's gaze became colder. He remembered that his sister worked for the Huang family to earn money for Kai to go to the Devil Star, and that fool Huang Wei often chased the young girl and mocked her. Moreover, Huang Wei often used Jiankai's brother's illness to humiliate him, calling the guy's brother a sick dog and then beating Kai himself. Although Kai's fists were already shaking from tension, he stopped Wei Ju from attacking him, who advised everyone to keep their mouths shut, since their rating would also be high. Kai restrained his angry friend and calmly stepped forward, apologizing to everyone present and informing them that the rating would soon be completely redesigned, since he and his team would take first place. Hearing this, the newcomers who surrounded the three guys, analyzing the information received from Kai's lips, became in a stupor. But the silence did not last long. The next second it was replaced by loud laughter from everyone around and the words of Huang Wei, who said that Kai had gone crazy and his place was only at the end of the ranking. And after such statements, one might think that the guy now needs psychological counseling after the test. After listening to many insults directed at them, Kai told Ju and Nuan that it was time to stop pretending and show all their cards. Nuan nodded contentedly and was ready to wipe the nose of everyone laughing at them. And the satisfied Ju seemed to be waiting for Kai to say this, and pressed the button on his watch, opening his inventory. In an instant, a huge number of screens appeared behind the team with a variety of trophies, which stretched from the floor and straight to the ceiling. Although the room was huge, even it could barely fit all the pop-up screens. Everyone around froze, mouths open, and could not believe their eyes, since there were incredibly many trophies. Huang Wei, with sweat on his face, began to realize that all the trophies were the bodies of dangerous monsters, and these are not the simplest monsters in existence. Among other things, the most unimaginable thing was the presence of the bodies of a humanoid monster and wild twilight wolves. It seemed impossible or even deception, but everyone's surprise reached its peak when someone in the room shouted out that they had noticed a trophy in the form of the Twilight Wolf King, who was the main boss. Huang Wei still couldn't believe what he saw. Because of shock, he denied what was happening, considering it some kind of joke, because it seemed impossible that the newcomers destroyed so many dangerous monsters. But Kai was not going to prove anything, but only said that he would not say anything, because the rating could say everything for them. Everyone immediately opened the ranking table and again couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the changed places in the ranking, which proved that Kai really wasn't joking or deceiving. Seeing the ranking, Huang Wei realized that Jian Kai, Zhu, and the girl Nuanwan, a stranger to him, actually took the top 3 places in the ranking. Kai, who had been standing aside all this time, grinned slyly, asking Wei if he really thought that was all. Maybe Huang Wei knows how to kill stowaways? It is unlikely. And the next moment, the team of guys took out more than 15 watches from their pockets, which everyone recognized, because they helped stowaways get to the Devil's Star. And if the guys had this watch, it meant only one thing. They destroyed the owners of this watch. But this did not count as a trophy. The other newcomers stared at the watch, also immediately recognizing it, but were still very surprised, because these technologies were created in that very country, the country of L. Still not accepting the situation, Huang Wei shouted that these watches proved the exposure of the guys from the team, because a newcomer could not kill a stowaway who had such a high level, so he still considered Kai's team a bunch of liars. Moreover, there is no guarantee that they killed them during the test. Huang Wei asked everyone present if they had seen stowaways during the test, but they all answered in the negative. No one met the stowaways only because Kai's team destroyed them before they reached the recruits. But for Huang Wei, who did not know this fact, it was still a lie. He demanded that the guys' ratings be cancelled and their words strictly rechecked. From the outside, local recruits began to be subjected to severe pressure demanding punishment for the newcomers. They wanted Kai's team to be held accountable for their lies. Xiao Tao already wanted to believe it. But suddenly the doors opened, and people in uniform and some formally dressed man entered the room, saying that the stowaways had actually entered the testing area. But the main administration did not have time to warn everyone about it. The man said that he was also surprised when he heard the news about the stowaways, but considering the fact that his superiors personally asked him to come and praise Jian Kai and the other 2 members of his team, it was indeed true. Everyone recognized the man who entered as Lu Jun, who was the deputy commander-in-chief of the Middle River City of the Armed Region. People of this status rarely come just like that, so it finally began to dawn on everyone that Kai was telling the truth. Lu Jun approached Jiang Kai and said that the military had decided to make an exception for him to thank him for solving the crisis that the free riders might have caused and to increase the reward in the form of materials. The rewards for 2nd and 3rd place have been changed from Index B to A, but Jiang Kai's reward for 1st place should also be higher. Therefore, one rose from a level to S level. Hearing this, Kai was pleasantly surprised and happy, but could not begin to utter a word. Nuanuan was incredibly happy for Kai, believing that all this was very good. Zhu also let out a satisfied, victorious exclamation, and Kai, lowering his head and smiling, could only utter quiet and short words of gratitude. Everyone around in surprise and shock boasted their heads in surprise and envy. They couldn't believe that a newbie could be given an S-tier reward, which meant that even at a very early stage he would have excellent equipment. It's probably worth explaining what surprised everyone so much. Currently, the equipment on the Devil's Star is divided into quality S, the best quality, and then A, B, C, D, E, and F in order of deterioration. F is the worst quality. Generally, the quality of level B and C equipment is already very good, but level A and S materials are what every pioneer can dream of, including Huang Wei, who clenched his fists tightly in anger, annoyed that he could not win. And he was even more angry with Jiang Kai, jealous of him. After all, he was able to not only receive a reward in the form of S-tier materials, but also pushed him from 1st place in the ranking to 4th. Anger and rage tore through Huang Wei. He shouted that this was all not fair. Something was definitely wrong with the rating, because Jian Kai and his family were suitable as servants for him. How can inferior people be better than Wei? But Kai instantly became serious and turned to Huang Wei, saying that his guesses didn't matter. Didn't he have enough military people who proved him wrong? And the guy also angrily warned that no one should dare to insult his family anymore. This was the last straw for Huang Wei, who took up arms, and, despite Xiao Tao trying to stop him, headed towards Kai, calling him 7 poor outcasts. Next, Huang Wei again called his brother Kai a sick dog, his sister a girl of easy virtue, and Kai himself just a fool whom he had already pressed to the wall. Therefore, now Kai does not dare tell him what to do. Kai said nothing, as usual, allowing anger to penetrate deep into his body and ignite an inner fire that generated great aggression and strength. It was like a time bomb waiting to explode, reminding that Kai's younger sister was still working as a maid in his house, so Kai should not anger him. Huang Wei aggressively attacked the guy, drawing his blade. The last straw for Kai was Wei's threats towards his sister, saying that he could have fun with her. The guy attacked Wei in response, full of anger, and stabbed him with his spear. Kai himself was left without a single scratch after Huang Wei's attack, while on his opponent's chest, the white shirt was torn and turned red from the blood that sprayed from the cut. Everyone around was shocked that Kai managed to injure a guy of such high status, who was also one of the strongest players. Zhu and Nuanwan understood that Kai had injured Huang Wei, and it also became clear that they would definitely not be with friends. One could only guess what would come of it. Observing the situation, Li Jun noted Jin Kai's high ability to attack well and quickly, and he liked it.